Diabetes is a serious condition that can lead to many health complications if left untreated. With early diagnosis and treatment, people with diabetes can enjoy a normal, healthy life. But 1 out of every 3 people who have diabetes don't know that they have it. So what and how do we go about diagnosing diabetes? That's our topic on this episode tonight. Hey, I'm glad that you're here. We're glad that you are back. We are in the middle or the beginning, actually, of the month of diabetes awareness. And that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. And here on the channel, I help to educate, I help to empower, and I help to encourage you to take charge of your health, your life, avoid complications, and live the life you've always wanted. Tonight, like I said, we're talking about the diagnosis of diabetes, not symptoms, but the tests that we do. How do we go about evaluating diabetes and diagnosing someone with this disease? So we're going to get into that in a minute. If you've not already done so, we started the month by talking about what diabetes is. We talked about type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So go back and watch those. I'm getting into the month, right? We're getting into different topics as we go through the month. So try to keep up. If you've missed a show that's live, go back and watch those and then come back with us as we move into tomorrow night and so forth into the month. 37 million people in the United States, almost 500 million around the world who have diabetes. So a very devastating disease, but we can catch it early. We can live long and healthy lives. So if you've not already done so, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Also, share this with people who you know who have diabetes, people who are at risk. We're going to talk about some of those here as we get into our discussion. Subscribe to the channel and go ahead and hit that bell. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So we are talking tonight about diabetes and the diagnosis of diabetes. All right, if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat with a Q in front of it so that we know that is a question that that we will need to get to. We'll try to do all of those as we get those on our social media and also on the channel here. So the diagnosis of diabetes. So this screen looks very busy and complicated, but we're going to walk through it together and talk about the different components. Along the side, you'll see diabetes, pre-diabetes, and what's normal. So green down at the bottom is considered normal, and we'll talk about what those parameters are. Then pre-diabetes, we're in the warning phase, right? So pre-diabetes, hey, we're not normal. Our numbers are not normal. There are some things that are going on. We need to pay some close attention. And then, of course, in the red there, you'll see that is the diagnosis of diabetes. And there are 4 columns that we're going to go through each one in succession. The very first one, and I think the one that most people have heard about, is the hemoglobin A1C. The hemoglobin A1C. And the hemoglobin A1C is a test that your doctor can do. It is a blood test. You get it drawn either at the lab. Sometimes in the office, they will actually prick your finger and they will use an in-office machine to get an A1C. Now, let me pause here to say that the A1C that we get in the office, currently is not used for the diagnosis of diabetes. It is used for tracking how we're doing with our diabetes. So in order to be diagnosed using an A1C, the A1C must be done at a reference lab that most reference labs now, I'm just going to stop there. There were some criteria that we had in the past, but most reference labs now, when I say reference labs, that's when you go to the lab, they draw blood, and then you get a result. Most reference labs now will be able to do that. So we can't use the number in the office, but we can use that for tracking, okay? So let's talk about the A1C. So an A1C that is 5.6 or lower is considered normal. So a normal person who does not have diabetes, if you check their A1C, is typically 5.6 or lower. When we get to 5.7, then we're talking now about being pre-diabetic, right? So pre-diabetes, that's where those folks are. and that's 5.7 to 6.4. Let's pause there for just a second. I hear, yeah, you guys hear my family's coming on. So pre-diabetes, right? So 5.7 to 6.4. And then, of course, diabetes would be 6.5 or above. So 6.5 or above is considered diabetes when we talk about the A1C. So that's the A1C. Now, the next group of tests that we have to do with blood sugars. So the fasting blood sugar that's considered normal is anything that's 99 or below. A lot of times people will talk about their blood sugars rising. Hey, I went to the doctor, my blood sugar was 80 and it's normally 60, or it's 80 and it's normally 70. But you're not considered to be pre-diabetic, which is the next phase, until your blood sugar rises to 100, and then from 100 to 125 is considered to be pre-diabetic once again. So 99 and below is normal, 100 to 125 considered pre-diabetic, and then 126, once you've reached 126 and above, then you're considered diabetes. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, right? I'm going to talk about, so because notice that there are very small differences between what's a pre-diabetic and a diabetic, but we'll come back and we'll talk about that here in a minute. The next one is the glucose tolerance. So the fasting blood sugar, by the way, the fasting blood sugar is when you go to the lab. Once again, this has to be a reference lab. You go to the lab, they draw blood, and then they tell you, hey, your blood sugar at that time was 99 or below, which is normal, 100 to 125, considered pre-diabetes, and then 126 and above, considered to be diabetes. And then the glucose tolerance test. And this one, some people may know if you were diagnosed years ago, or if you recently have been pregnant, had a baby. During pregnancy, they do glucose tolerance tests. We don't do them a lot anymore because we have the A1C, and then we, of course, use the fasting glucose. But if you go to the lab, you have to be fasting. They will give you the glucola is what it's called. So that orange drink. And when you get your blood sugar, a blood sugar of 139 or below is considered normal. 139 or below considered normal. 140 to 199 is considered pre-diabetic, right? And then 200 or above is considered diabetes. Once again, we're walking through the green, normal, pre-diabetes in the yellow, so caution, right, using those traffic light symbols. And then red would be considered diabetes, right? So that's the A1C, the fasting blood glucose, and then the glucose tolerance. And then on the end there, you'll see in all black, it says symptoms. So symptoms. So if a person has symptoms of diabetes, and once again, if you have not done so, we did a short on the 3 Ps of diabetes, right? So polyphagia, polydipsia, polyuria. If you haven't done that, go back and watch and find that one and watch it. The symptoms of diabetes and a random blood sugar of 200 or above. So if you have a blood sugar of 200 above and you're having symptoms, even though we may not have done an A1C or a fasting plasma glucose or the glucose tolerance, then you're still considered to have had or to have diabetes. Okay. Now let me pause. And I said I was going to come back and talk about this. Notice that the difference between diabetes, pre-diabetes, and normal is just for instance, in A1C, it's 1/10 of a point. So 5.6 to 5.7, that's 1/10 of a point. That's the difference. And then from 6.4 to 6.5. So a lot of times people will say, oh, I'm pre-diabetic. Well, guess what? Pre-diabetics can still have some of the same complications that we see with diabetics. Okay. So don't let that number lull you into false security, right? But you still have to make sure that you are doing the things for your health that you need to do so that you can avoid progression to diabetes. All right. So that's how we diagnose it. That's how we diagnose it. Well, one of the questions that should be asked, and we should ask, is, well, so that's how we diagnose it, but who should we be testing, and where do we want our numbers to be? Now, I'm going to show you a slide here, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this one in a different show. That is, when we're treating diabetes, where do we want your blood sugar to be? Well, if pre-diabetes is 5.6 to 6.4, right, then we really want your numbers to be in that range. Now, ideally, we would want it to be way back down into the normal range. And there are some other technicalities why that sometimes doesn't work. And we'll deal with that in a different show. But we want your number to be 6.5 or lower, right? 6.5 or lower when we're treating. We'll come back and we'll talk about treatment in another show. So who should we be testing, right? For impaired fasting glucose, impaired glucose tolerance, abnormal A1C, and then the high symptom that we talked about, right? Who are the people that we should be testing is the question. And on your screen, you should see a list of people that we should be testing who are asymptomatic. So now notice, these are people that don't have any symptoms, because we said in the other slide, if you have symptoms and you are having a blood sugar of 200 or higher, then you're considered diabetes. Well, let's assume that you don't have any of those. You're kind of going along, minding your business, right? And you show up to your doctor's office. Should your doctor be checking you for diabetes? And here is a list. It's not a comprehensive list, but it's a pretty impressive list, right, of people that should be tested. So people who are overweight or obese, that's a BMI of 25 or greater, or if you're Asian American, then it's 23 or higher, who have one or more of the following risk factors. So we're talking about risk factors now, right? So if you have a first degree relative, mother, father, right, brother, sister, who has diabetes, then you should be screened and tested for diabetes. If you are in a high risk ethnic group, those, for example, African Americans, Latino Americans, Native Americans, Asian Americans, then you should be tested as well. Pacific Islanders. If you have a history of coronary cardiovascular disease, if you have hypertension or being treated for hypertension, if you have an HDL, which is that good cholesterol that's less than 35, and usually we want that to be 39 or higher, it's actually 40 or higher, or you have triglycerides that are 250 or higher. Right. Then you should be screened and or tested. Women, if you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, right, that's another part of the metabolic syndrome, and we'll talk about that also in another show. If you are physically inactive, now let me pause here. Raise your hand if you're getting regular exercise. Okay, so notice a lot of people fall into this category. So you may not fall into any of the others category, but if you're physically inactive, then you are one that should potentially be screened for diabetes. If you have a condition, a clinical condition with insulin resistance that's associated with insulin resistance, so obesity, acanthosis nigricans, which is one of the signs of insulin resistance, and we'll show you a picture of that as we get into the month. If you have pre-diabetes, you should be tested yearly, right? So a lot of times people will say, oh, I've been pre-diabetic. They told me that in 2010. Well, when was the last time you were tested? Well, you should be doing that yearly. Women who were diagnosed with gestational diabetes, that's diabetes that occurs during pregnancy, should have lifelong testing at least every 3 years, right? Because they have a higher likelihood of progressing to diabetes. For all other patients, testing should begin at age 35. If the results are normal, testing should be repeated at a minimum of every 3-year intervals. And then finally, people with HIV, then they should also be tested and screened, right? So those are the people, right? When we talk about diagnosing, those are the people that we should be screening and testing at this point. Let me pop up to this screen. right? So that we can have a conversation here. So those are the ways that we go about testing people. We're gonna talk in the show, in our series as we get into the month, about symptoms. We're gonna talk about treatment. We are going to unpack diabetes. Okay, so if you are interested in knowing about diabetes, if you have people in your family, friends, anyone that you know that has a potential for having diabetes, anyone who has anything that we just listed, this series for this month that we're going to be doing is where they need to be, because we're going to walk through it. As you see, we're breaking this up into little chunks. All right, we're not spending an hour talking about about all of diabetes. We're walking through very, very small chunks of this so that you can walk along with us, and so you can get an understanding. Okay, so if you're getting some benefit, go ahead and hit the like button, share it with somebody. And as you guys know, we have been using our show, or on our show, I shouldn't say using, on our show, we've introduced a new feature, and it is called our wonderful question wheel. So let's go ahead. Let's see if I can. Let me get that over here, and let's get on over to that. All right, so the whole idea behind the amazing question wheel is that I have a bunch of questions on the wheel, and I'm going to spin the wheel, and whatever question it lands on, I'm going to answer it. But the kick to it is I only have 45 seconds to answer the question, right? So this is not a long, drawn out, I've got 45 seconds to give you a succinct, understandable little chunk of information that you can take away, and you can share with people, and that you can use for yourself, right? So that's what we're planning to do. Let me see. Let me pop it up. There we go. Okay. And the reason we're doing that, once again, is that we're going to also use that part of the information that I give, that little answer. We're going to use it as one of the shorts that we're going to put out on our channels and on all our social media platforms. So you get to see it made here right now. And then I want you to go out and I want you to find it on the social media platforms. And you could in there, type, you can do hashtag I was there. All right. So, because you saw me make it on the fly. Okay. So let's just see if we can do that. Now, if I go over, then it's going to move on to another scene. I'm going to have some applause and so forth, but we'll see. Okay. Let's see if I can get that there. So here it is. So let's spin the wheel and let's see where it lands. Round and round and round and round, round and round. And, oops. What's going on there? Let's get rid of that one. So here's a good one. Wow. What should my blood sugar be? Try to answer two questions. Okay. I'm going to answer for someone who is not diabetic, and I'm going to try to answer for someone who is diabetic. I'm trying to put those together. In the middle, I might change my mind, but I'm going to try to do both in one. So here we go. Let's get our screen up, and 45 seconds coming. So what should my blood sugar be? So for patients who are diabetic, we tell them that their fasting blood sugar, that is when they wake up in the morning without eating, the blood sugar should be between 100 and 120. If you read the guidelines, they say anywhere from 70 to 180. Also, before they eat, the blood sugar should be less than 140. That's for patients who are diabetic. For patients who are not diabetic, as you saw, normal blood sugars are below 99, or 99 or below, and actually even lower than that if they are not pre-diabetic. Okay, so those are our numbers. All right, let's see if we got it. Did we make it? I think I made it with 3. Did I do it? Okay. All right, all right. So I think I made it. I think I made it. So we'll see how that goes. But that is part of our new feature that we've put on our amazing question wheel. If you have questions that you would like us to answer, go ahead and send those in. We will add them to the wheel, and we're going to give you credit. We're going to give you a shout out if we use your question. You can do that on any of our social media platforms. That's Dwayne Wood, MD. You'll see that right under my name. If you go to any of our social media platforms, you'll find us there, Dwayne Wood, MD. You can also put them in the comments for this show or any of the shows that we are doing for the month. You can also send us an email at dwood@dwaynewoodmd.com. Dwood at dwaynewoodmd.com. Okay. All right. So the final thing that I want to talk about is subscriptions. As we grow, or as we do this, we would like to grow, right? That's one of the reasons that we are doing this. We want to help as many people as possible get benefit from what we're doing. I was talking to someone recently. I tell them there should be some benefit for people. For me being an endocrinologist, as I speak into the space, as I speak into the community, my sisters and I were having a conversation last night about giving our gifts and using our gifts to enrich the community. And that's what I want to do. So here on this channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and live the life you've always wanted. So in order to do that and reach as many people, we want you to subscribe. Go to the channel. You'll have to create an account. You're not paying any money. There's no funds involved, right? Create a free account and then hit the subscription button so that you will be on our list to get information on shows that we put and videos that we put. In order to get the notifications, though, you got to hit the bell. You got to hit the bell that says alert me. That's the first thing, right? Go create an account, go ahead, subscribe, hit the bell. And then go through and look at the videos that we've done. We did in the month of August, we did a series on building ourselves. How do we create a new version of ourselves? I mean, it's a wonderful, enriching set of videos that we did. 30 videos on, a very varying number of topics. Last month, we started working on our new start, right? How to take care of our bodies. And of course, this month, because it is Diabetes Awareness Month, we're going to be doing series on diabetes, okay? You want to be able to get all that information. So go ahead and do that, subscribe. There are going to be some, I almost said handouts, some booklets. There are going to be some graphics that we're going to produce this month and get it out to you. Just a lot of things that we want to do, but we want you to come along with us. And also let us know what you're interested in, right? So as I'm walking through this month, the questions that we're getting, those questions, I want them to be the questions that you want to hear about. I have a list of things that I'm going to go through that I think are more common, that people are asking, that people want to know, some general information about diabetes, but I want to know what you're interested in. So go ahead and send that in to us so that we can add that to the list of things that we're going to be doing. Okay, so after saying all of that, I am so glad that you're here. Glad that you came by. Glad that you took time to be with us. We will see you again tomorrow on our next show. Thanks for being here. This is Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I help to educate. I help to encourage, and I help to empower you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. All right. Have a good night. Bye-bye.